Good afternoon, good evening. We've got folks trickling in here. Welcome. I'll give folks a little while to make their way in. Welcome, welcome, welcome to today's webinar, 5 Ways to Set Your Customers Up for Success. My name is Emily Sandilands. I am the community builder here at Zingerman, and I'm going to be your host today, but I'm thrilled to be here alongside our 2 fabulous presenters who you see on the screen as well. We have Elnian Gilbert, one of our trainers here. Hi, Elnian.
Hello, Emily and everybody.
We also have Ariana Tejas Leon, who is another trainer here. Hi, Ariana.
Hello. Good to see you.
So glad to have you both here with us. We also have Mara Ferguson here behind the scenes. You can't see her, but she is here. She is our keynote liaison. She is going to be monitoring the chat and the questions with me during today's webinar. We are coming to you live from all over Ann Arbor, Michigan, from our living rooms and home offices and all over the place, but we'd love to hear where you're tuning in from. So if you want to navigate to the bottom of your Zoom screen there to find the chat button, go ahead and enter in your location. We'll do a little roll call. Okay, San Antonio. Folks all over Michigan, Santa Barbara.
That's great. We just had folks come from McConnell's Fine Ice Creams from Santa Barbara.
Fantastic. Portland, Oregon, the Philippines, Manila, Philippines. Welcome. Keep those coming in. We'd love to continue to see where you're tuning in from. While those come in, I'll cover a little more housekeeping. We are going to be, for as far as the format of today's webinar, we are going to be presenting for a while here, and then we're going to save some time at the end of the webinar for Q&A. Feel free to submit any questions you have throughout the duration of today's webinar by finding the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen there. It should be right near that chat button that you just clicked to send in your location. We're going to do our very best to get to as many of your questions today as we can. Should we not get to your question, not to worry, we will get back to you with answers in the days to come. There is also closed captioning available during today's webinar. If you'd like to turn that on, there is a closed captioning button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You can get captions on screen by clicking Show Subtitle, or you can see the full live transcript as we talk by clicking View Full Transcript. The transcript should pop up to the right of your screen. Last item of business before I turn things over to these ladies to get started, we are going to be recording today's webinar, and we will be posting it on our website, as well as sending it to you in your inboxes here in the next 24 to 48 hours. So be sure to look out for that in the days to come. And I'm going to turn it over to you ladies to get us started.
All right, thank you, Emily. We are really excited about this content, talking about ways to set your customer up for success. The subtext for this was essentially, kind of ways to set your customer up for success before they even walk in the door, or ways to set your customers up for success without ever even talking to them. What we were thinking about, we developed this as we were in the process of planning our upcoming retail tune-up. These are some things that we've learned over the years that just don't always fit in really well with other customer service training, but they definitely play a role in our customers having a great experience. So, kind of now that you know the secret subtext of what we're going to talk about, we are going to work to make it relate to different kinds of businesses and industries, although we did have kind of a more retail experience in mind. Before we dive in, though, I just want to ask, Ariana, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thanks, Elnian. I am one of the trainers at Zingtrain, though 9 years ago, I started out working at Zingerman's Deli, right in the middle of the deli being under construction. And so in terms of setting customers up for success, as I came on, we were changing that all the time. And there are a lot of conversations about, oh my goodness, how do we approach this? And we have to close down the front door and all of the, how can we get this information to as many people as possible? And once they're in the building, how do we get them safely around construction zones? So I am always really fascinated by how we can test things out and make it really easy for our customers to purchase or get services from us, and then also making it a little bit hard for them to do the completely wrong thing. So I'm really excited to be joining Elnian and sharing these tips with you today.
All right, thanks, Ariana. My name is Elmian Gilbert. I have been a part of the Zingerman's organization for about 14 and a half years. I started on the front lines at our mail order business, giving great service over the phone in the holiday season. This was a seasonal, temporary job. I had no intention of staying, which was great because they had no intention of keeping me. I was going to go get a real job and have a career. And, much to my surprise, I fell in love with the organization. The commitment to customer service, the commitment to training are a large part of the reason that I'm still here. So, I've been involved in, the mail order business at Zing Train, but have been around all of the Zingerman's businesses for a pretty long time. And prior to that, I have, retail experience. So part of what we're going to share with you, it's customer service, but there's some merchandising that comes into play as well. When we had a merchandising seminar, really learned some stuff that I think helps deliver a great customer experience. So let's dive into it. The first one here is using your customer's eyes. It's kind of viewing your space using your customer's eyes. And first and foremost, we want to talk about a physical space. So this was like eye-opening to me. It's encouraging you to walk through your front door. Right. All too often we enter stores or our space through the back door or a side door, which means that we're often missing really critical information of what our customers are seeing when they enter into the retail experience. So looking, is there trash on the ground? Do the windows need to be cleaned? Do we have visual clutter, kind of on the outside, or do we have too many signs? Right, that's certainly something that I've seen a number of times in different retail locations. Is there's so much going on, it's overwhelming, and it doesn't really make me want to open the door and walk inside. Another thing that can happen when we're looking at our physical space is looking at, is there out of date information, right? Is there anything that we have on there? Is there a promotion that's already ended? Do we have inaccurate time, listed for hours of operations? And I think as you're walking through the front door, it can be really helpful to actually look at your displays. What direction are they facing? This was a huge aha for me when I took our merchandising seminar. Our deli has a really giant long cheese case, right? Customers 80 something different varieties of cheese. It's extremely engaging and inviting. But the way that they had set things up at the time was everything was facing if you were directly in front of the cheese counter, right? But that's not how customers see the cheese counter when they walk through the door, right? So what they ended up doing was to face some of the cheese so that it was actually facing the customers when they walk through the door, so they would see that and it would visually kind of draw them in. So really thinking about, what does your retail space look like, viewing your displays kind of with a critical eye, seeing what it is that your customers are seeing when you walk through your front door, right? It's kind of a different experience. Some of our clients have actually taken this idea of using your customers' eyes and gotten a pair of fake glasses so that someone could literally put on the customer's eyes and get into that mindset to walk through the front door. I don't know that you necessarily need to go that far, but it's something to think about. So speaking of the displays, these are also 3 different kind of merchandising examples of what's pleasing to the customer eye that we would, that's from that merchandising seminar. So the first one is about proximity alignment. So grouping like items together and then aligning them visually, right? You can see that the example on the left is always going to be the one that's not quite great. And then the one on the right, you can kind of see that it's more pleasing to the eye. Your eye wants to organize things, and it's a little harder to find what you really want when things are a little bit jumbled. And the next example here is proximity grouping. So again, putting like items together. So the example on the right is way less kind of visually chaotic than the example on the right. So this is why in a lot of different, grocery stores or other retail environments, you see the way that things are grouped in the way that makes them the most compelling for the customer. And then finally, a cheese example, a visual alignment here. So in this case, the cheese, would be the cheese facing the door. if it was at the end of the counter to draw the customer's eyes and bring people in, right? And of course, it would be aligned differently as you would move further down the counter. There, it would be appropriate for it to be faced the way that someone was kind of going face on, directly looking at it. So, none of the examples on the left are bad necessarily. But, if you like, for me personally, this was just kind of eye-opening of how much better I liked the examples on the right-hand side. Okay. So just some tips, some merchandising tips that we picked up along the way. The other way of using your customer's eyes, I think, is not just physically. You can apply the same concept to your virtual storefront, your website. So even if you're not selling online, customers will almost always go to your website first to look for what they want to know. So, as this kind of a sidebar of what not to do, it personally drives me crazy as a customer when a business only has a Facebook page, right? It can be super hard to find the right information. It's almost always out of date. And I just like visually navigating I can't tell what you're trying to tell me. So asking yourself, what is the purpose that your website is serving? Is it to tell the customers what you want to tell them, or does it tell them what you want to know? Right? Is it something of a dialogue, or is it more of a monologue, or even like a microphone or a whatever those things are called?
Bullhorn?
Yes, thank you. Bullhorn. I was like, a speakerphone. That's still not what I mean. Right? Is it or like a megaphone? FAQs, I think, are great for bridging that gap. Right? You can kind of pretend that customers have asked about these things that you really want to tell them in kind of a friendlier way. I would say that if you are selling online and you're using a different platform, doing your best to kind of make them visual sisters, so that for the customers who move between them. It's 100% clear to us that you're moving between our website or our WordPress website to the Shopify or Square page, but ideally it's way less visible to the customer that it's a totally different, transaction. Lastly, and this is something that I think is really important to customer service, is to make sure that you're sharing the crucial information for customers in easy to find spots. So your phone number, your physical address, your hours, right? There we go. Your hours. And if there's anything that they need to know about visiting your business now during COVID times, especially as things change, right? So this is a great segue to Ariana for the next bit, which I previewed a little bit there, which is about communicating often and with great variety.
Thank you. Technical pause here. All right. So when we talk about communicating often and with variety, we start with the belief that our customers want to do the right thing. We just need to clearly communicate to them so that they can get from where they are right now, which is either wanting our products or our services, over to the purchasing or connecting with what they need in order to get what they want. So communication style number one, we're going to start with talking about signs and using signs, visually showing folks the information that they need in order to get what they want. There are certainly useful and less than useful signs in the world. And one thing is making sure that they are really big and bold, not too many words on a sign so that people can read them at a quick glance. Also making sure that the primary message, whatever is like the main content we need to communicate, is the biggest word. For example, the pay here, or the curbside pickup, or the click here for whatever it is, making sure that that's really clear on the website. So, or in person. For example, in person, on the left-hand side there, the first words that you see are curbside pickup call, then the phone number, and then in smaller letters at the bottom, you see the actual parking spot number, because you probably don't need that information until you're prompted by the service provider over the phone to tell you what that parking spot is. Location is also vitally important, just like with facing retail towards the entrance, making sure that signs faces whatever direction the customer is coming from. If it's on a website, it might be making sure that the home page has a quick link in case someone gets lost in navigating the different pages. In this example here on the right, this is actually for a library, and you can see the sign is facing so that it's visible as people drive up. It then directs vehicles to the left, pedestrians. There's another sign in the background there with more information. It's a little closer up, designed to actually give that information when you need it as you're standing in front. So for now, if you're in a vehicle, go that way. Once you're up here as a pedestrian, here's what you need to know in order to get your books or whatever you're picking up from the library. Of course, customers don't always read the signs. So keeping in mind that a sign might be totally obvious to you, but remember that you're used to seeing your own space all the time. If it's a customer's first time visiting, or maybe they don't come very often, everything is new. You're looking for parking, or you're trying to find the front door, or a website has a lot of words that you might not be used to reading. Our brains just can't pick up what to us, when we're staff people looking at it, we know our own look and feel. We want to make sure that we're matching and making sure that things are really obvious to someone who's not used to looking at our space. So in order to communicate, we want to make sure that we're using a couple of different techniques. For example, matching up phone, website, in person, giving people options. If there's a live chat versus sending an email, giving all of those options that people might want to use in order to be able to contact us to get more information or ask questions. A couple more signs for in person. These signs, you can see they're pictures of the location, but the key point here is that they're also located on the website. So when someone comes in, they're placing an order, they know what they're looking for when they get here. The library on the left there, they actually have a video of the pickup process on their website, making it abundantly clear to someone who hasn't used the pickup process before how it works. Note that this can be really fantastic for someone who's worrying or wondering about physical accessibility of a process. So is there a ramp there up to the curb? What information might someone else be looking for? How can you communicate that on the website before they're there in front of your business, potentially stuck? On the right-hand side there, when you placed your food order at Miss Kim, this image shows on the website, so you can actually see both the seating options and what the curbside pickup location looks like. So when you're coming up, it's a little bit familiar and a little easier to find. Now, switching gears a little bit, sometimes signs are not the answer, and we might need to use different communication techniques. If people are ordering on a website, highlighting the next steps in a confirmation email. So for example, at Zingtrain, when someone purchases training on our website, we send them a confirmation email and the receipt. This does not include the Zoom information that they will need to participate in a virtual workshop. So we let them know right there in their confirmation that they will be receiving an email with the Zoom information immediately, and then a week away from the workshop, and then 2 hours away from the workshop. And we ask them, if you do not see these emails, please let us know, because we know that something has been sent to spam or whatever. We want to make sure that we can fix it and get that information to the folks who need it. Also, if you don't have any particular next steps to share, make sure that the customer knows where to go if they need help. How do you want people to contact you with questions about their order or a form that you need to send them, whatever it might be? Is it phone? Is it email? Is it live chat? Give them the information right there so they don't have to go back and search your whole website in order to find the services or the follow-up products that they need. Over the phone at Zingerman's Deli, when you place an order on the phone, they're really good at telling you where to park, what to look for in order to get your sandwich, and they slide in the you need to wear a mask, getting ahead of those usual challenges before you arrive. So if you have any information that folks really need to know, making sure that you have multiple ways to communicate that, and there's nothing like actually getting the person on the phone. And even with abundantly clear directions on the website, over the phone, nothing beats in person if you are an in-person business and having a door guard or a greeter, especially when things are really tricky. There's an actual person there to guide them when they arrive. The deli has been using door greeters long before the pandemic, and we're looking forward to being able to share snacks at the door again. So greeters can help people keep people safe, keep the right number of people in the building, also answer questions so that when folks do come in the building, they're more prepared and they know what they're looking for and how to communicate to us. Of course, having a combination of all three styles is going to be a really fantastic option so that however people like to communicate with us, whether that's with a live person or just reading, thank you very much, then we can find something that meets their needs. Using different language too can really help. Literally, if you know your customers speak multiple languages other than English, like get some translations, get the information to folks that need it, or well, less literally, avoid jargon or acronyms. Really look at your information through your customers' eyes. Are there places where you could use just regular phrases instead of business specific phrases, or can you have the definition close by in case people need more information? Hyperlinks are a really fantastic way to be able to slide that kind of information in if you're online. Also know some people are planners. They really want the like long form description of the process with all the details available so that they can prepare. Others might not be, so they might respond better to information that's big or bold or short phrases, and then get that direction to where they can find out more information, whether that's in person or guiding them to a live chat or a phone number to ask more questions. There really is no right way though, so testing things out, seeing what works, asking different folks within the business, maybe not just your department, what are some feedback that other departments can have. New staff are a fantastic resource to use too, because new staff are still getting used to all of the acronyms. What's confusing to them is absolutely going to be confusing to customers as well. And then we'll talk a little bit more about this in step number 5, but let's go to tip number 3 for now.
All right. So for this one, because it's a visual idea, I thought I would show you some different examples of what we're talking about. So they're in no particular order, but they're all different examples of using creative signage and clever visual cues to help kind of inform the customer's experience. So let's start with some COVID related signs, but they're fun, I promise. Okay. So the first one, I love this one, asking people to stay 1 horse length apart at a place called the White Horse Tavern. And for anyone who doesn't actually know how big horses are, they still spell it out that it's at least 6 feet, right? And I'm not showing shade there when I say to use your organizational sense of humor if you have one. Not every business has a built-in sense of humor. There are certain industries where it's frankly not appropriate. But I've seen a lot of articles recently that are talking about changing messaging from kind of the more direct, wear your mask, to a friendlier, like, please, let's all keep our masks on to keep everyone safe, right? Especially if it's not a CDC requirement anymore, having it be a little bit more friendly that we're asking you to do this, I think it comes across a little bit differently. And of course, you can just use humor full stop, right? I love what this place did with this super cute, version of the Queen song, and then their fantastic chalk art of Freddie Mercury. Right. And I've seen different examples of sassy or even snarky signage asking people to wear masks. To me, this kind of is on the positive side of that line where it's funny without being mean. Some of the other examples, you can feel the exasperation of the people that are writing the sign, right? That's coming through pretty clearly. You can also be blunt, right? Like the next one, which is no mask, no tacos. Right? It's clear, it's to the point. Customers have a lot of choices and we certainly want their business, but not at the cost of anyone's safety. So we can give customers the choice to mask up and come on in, or we can direct them to curbside service or other ways of ordering while we're still serving them in the safest possible way. Right? Shifting gears a little bit to some kind of non-word examples. I've seen a lot of examples of different ways that people are kind of taping things off to make it clear where people need to be or frankly where they need to not be. Most of the examples are good that I'm going to show you, but this one's pretty inexplicable. Like I'm not really clear on what's happening here. Like, where are you supposed to stand and for what? right? I mean, it's just kind of like a mishmash of different tape on the ground. So let's move on to the good examples. This was a park in Brooklyn. I really liked. They drew 6 feet circles with 6 feet of space in between them. What I really like about this as a visual cue is that it is the people instinctively know what to do, right? You don't have to have a long explanation. You have 6 feet circles. People know to be in the circles. Okay. This next one I really enjoy. I speak for like only myself when I say that I hate feeling in the way, or like I'm going the wrong way or doing the wrong thing in kind of like any retail or restaurant experience. Like it is the kind of thing that makes me want to walk right back out the door or just not come back. So I thought this was a really great example of a simple way of tape on the ground that is helping the customer be in the right place and going in the right direction. Right. So you can see not only where are you supposed to stand, those are the red lines, but the yellow is indicating the flow of traffic. As a customer, I'm like, yes, I understand this. You don't need to explain it to me. I get it. Right. So another example of kind of non-verbal cues here, this I thought was great. It was a hotel that was simply clearly communicating social distancing using the chairs themselves, not messing with a whole bunch of like caution tape or extra effort. So it's the kind of thing that I think, they're not using anything extra. Visually, it looks okay or even interesting to the customer, but it's not detracting from any kind of experience. And this next one is a bit of a departure. It's kind of a little bit out in left field in relation to the previous ones, but I liked it so much that I really wanted to include it here. This is, I believe, a Sephora store that has 2 different baskets to help customers have the experience that they want to have. So if you take a red basket, it means that you welcome being approached and assisted. And if you take a black basket, you need to approach an assistant or associate if you need help. Right. I've seen different versions of this from different, like one was a grocery store, different iterations of the same thing. But I really love that they created the system. I mean, I've never actually seen it in the wild, but, I think it's really great that there were multiple different versions of the same thing out there. To round up the themes from this section, I believe, what I want you to take away from this first and foremost is to make it easy and obvious for the customers to do the right thing, right? You heard that from Ariana. I'm reiterating it in a different way. And to that end, you don't actually have to use your words. There are a lot of different ways to help direct customers that don't require long, wordy signage. Right? There were plenty of examples when we were preparing this of overly wordy signs or like a plethora of places where stores had too many signs. We decided to stick to the positive examples here. I mean, because I think we can all identify those experiences that we've had out, in the wild, so to speak, where we've seen that in action, where it's overwhelming. My eye doesn't know where to go, and I'm not sure what's important information for me to have. And lastly, I think this last point is kind of tied with importance for the first one there, which is that, the signage and visual cues are in the interest of setting not only the customers up for success, but also your staff as well, right? If customers know where they're supposed to be, then the staff need to spend less time directing or redirecting them around and getting frustrated. Right, so can we nip that in the bud with just some really good creative signage? And, as Ariana said earlier too, putting it on your website so that it's not a mystery what you're going to ask anyone to do. Okay, so shifting gears into the fourth one, this is something that I know for sure other businesses are also really great at, which is not waiting for it to be a problem to arise before we start helping solve potential issues. Right, so one way to do this is just to review the orders as they come in. Did a customer order something that's off the menu or 86 today? Which, by the way, if you're not in the food industry, that means you're out of it. Like speaking of not using jargon, now you know what that means if you ever hear it. Or, maybe they purchased an event that is already happened, right? That's happened to us at Zingtrain. So let's not wait until it's too late and we're just not delivering. Like we can call the customer right away to check about a substitution or an alternate. Right? I personally had an experience ordering food not that long ago that my order was canceled after I'd already been waiting about 45 minutes with just the store is out of that. I'm like, I ordered 3 things. What were you out of? Also, you could have called me to say, we're out of this one thing. Do you want the other 2 things? Right? Because at that point it was getting real hangry and it was not a good experience at all. I wish that they had been a little bit more proactive in that situation. The other thing we can do when we're reviewing orders early, we can also catch unexpected orders. Like this person usually orders 5 of this item. This time they ordered 50. Really? Is that what they want? A friend of mine accidentally ordered 12 dozen of something instead of actually ordering 12. It was not a happy surprise, right? So can we catch those kind of things before they ever happen? Because you also know your customers' buying patterns over time too, that it's not typical that someone would buy this many of this item. Or if you know a customer really well, right, you can kind of just double check. So you usually order the gluten-free grits and bits waffles, but it looks like you ordered regular today. Is that correct? Right? It saves you both a whole lot of hassle and rework on the other end. The other thing that reviewing the orders kind of proactively allows us to do is to give good proactive service. So one recent example of this at Zingtrain is that we sell our staff guide, which includes Zingerman's long-term organizational vision, which as of the last printing of the staff guide was 100% correct, but that is now also sadly out of date. So our colleague Mara, hiding behind her video there, came up with the great idea to send an electronic copy to someone of our current 2032 vision anytime someone ordered the staff guide. Like the customers didn't ask for it. They certainly don't expect it. Frankly, they haven't even gotten the staff guide in the mail yet. So they don't even know that it's not up to date, but it feels much better to send that friendly email, right? Saying like, when you get the staff guide, you may notice that this vision is not exactly current. Here is a copy of our current 2032 vision. I mean, and of course we are working on an updated version of the staff guide so that we're not selling something that's out of date. It's more of an example anyway, whatever. Lastly, the other thing that we can do when we're proactively reviewing things is you can connect dots and build connections with the customers. Right? It never hurts to compliment someone if you've actually been to their business before and they haven't been a customer of yours before. One example of this, I happened to be reviewing an order for something, and the business that purchased it was a small ice cream shop called Elevated Ice Cream in Port Townsend, Washington, where I happen to have really good family friends. I've been to a number of times and had a great experience in that really adorable little ice cream shop. So, as I was helping the customer, I also, was able to mention, oh my gosh, I've been to Elevated Ice Creams. I love your shop. It's really great. I come to the area to visit family friends. And the response that I got from that was just like shock, one, and like just enthusiasm and excitement. You can also bond with people over things too. Recently we had someone, ask a question about something and I answered the question in our shared inbox and then, said, oh, I, see the name of your bakery is Snohomish. I have a friend who lives in the area. And, I was just having a conversation with someone about how to pronounce Snohomish, right? She was very delighted when she wrote back, which is, we have to help people pronounce it all the time. It just leaves people with that warm feeling as they kind of exit the interaction or, not exit the interaction necessarily, but it just leaves them with that warm, fuzzy feeling, which is definitely part of our service approach. Now, do we do this all the time? I wish we did, right? I mean, we all get busy, but I think this is the kind of thing that's great to keep in mind, especially if you're handling a lot of similar emails. Right? This is the kind of stuff that makes it a little bit more interesting for you, in addition to adding to the customer's experience as well. Speaking of communicating with the customers.
Yes. So Simon, this might start to answer your question, but we'll definitely come back in Q&A as well. Giving your customers what they want, some of the best way that we can find this out is by just capturing that feedback that people are giving us all the time. And some of the very best feedback that we get is from our customers who give what we call soft complaints. So they are not loud, they're not angry. They usually come from our biggest fans or our regular customers who are in every Tuesday or come in every other month, whatever it might be. They often start with a phrase like, I wish you, or why don't you, dot, dot, dot. And if we can start to listen for these key words, we realized that customers are telling us this all the time. They're very often telling us what works or what's not working, and even ideas for what would work better for them. So let's start to get that documented so that we can start to track those trends. We don't need to completely change a system, however, when one person complains really loudly or angrily. But I think a lot of times we kind of ignore those 30 people who are very kindly letting us know that they have a great idea for how something could be easier to access online, or, oh, I wish I'd had this information earlier. And then find ways to actually give the customers what they want. For example, this is for Detroit Street Lunchbox, which is a vegetarian vegan restaurant downtown Ann Arbor with, I'm assuming, waste conscious customers who found a really creative way to figure out whether or not to include knives, forks, and napkins in their order. P.S. It says plasticware, but it's also fully compostable. This is actually the first option on the menu when you go to place your order, because, it's always a debate of, do I put this in? Do I not put this in? What happens if the person's trying to go have a picnic and now they don't have any silverware? We don't want to make that assumption for the customer. Also, I, as a customer, I never think about the plasticware until I have received my order and I open it and think, I don't need this fork, or I wish there were a fork in here. So let's get ahead of that and anticipate that need that someone's definitely going to have later. Zingerman's Bakehouse, in terms of baking these special bakes, we don't bake all the flavors of bread all the time, and some breads are only available a few months or even only once a year. When I started working at the deli, there were literal call lists that we would put people on, and then someone would pick up the phone the Wednesday before a special bake came out and actually leave voicemails. Hey, I know you like pumpernickel raisin. We're gonna have it in a couple of days, just so you know. The more updated version is now letting people know, hey, if you get on the e-news, then you will be the first to know when the pumpernickel raisin is back in season. Or YNAB. YNAB is a budgeting software tool that does a fantastic job of letting people know, we heard your feedback, thank you. Having spaces where you can give feedback. Then they say a change is coming. Then they say the change will happen very soon. And finally, they say the change has happened and here's how it works. Here's how to deal with the change that we just made it happen. And I love that as a budgeting kind of person. I also like all of that news as it comes. Universal Standard too is an online store, and in their online store, they're really good at having different models with very different body types. Because if you can't try something on, being able to find a model that more matches your body type and then finding out how that information is useful to you. What are some creative ways that in our businesses we can show people information in advance before something arrives at their home or before they show up for an event? With these soft complaints too, once you make the change, make sure to recheck back in and use the customer's eyes again to make sure that things still make sense. So at Ms. Kim, one of our restaurants, people started asking for their orders to be put directly into their trunks, which led to a new challenge of, does the service person close the trunk for that person or leave it open? People have very strong opinions, it turns out, on either one. So the new system was, when you drop something in someone's trunk, actually ask, would you like me to close this trunk for you? And giving people those options as opposed to trying to decide, well, I guess most people like this, so we'll just go with that. Where are opportunities that you can actually give each individual the option that they need? Or another example, on our ZingTrain website, we updated our website, which was amazing for so many reasons. And it turns out that on our resource page, where all of the articles and these webinars will be, once this one's done being recorded and updated, it turns out it wasn't as searchable as they thought we would be. And we found this out by all of us at Zingtrain trying to search things and not being able to find an article that we literally remembered writing ourselves. So there's an update in the works, and it's just that continuous revisiting of, hey, we did an update, it's fantastic. And every time you change something, you're going to get more feedback, more, hey, I love this, can you also? Continuously collecting that feedback, revisiting it, looking for those trends can be fantastic for figuring out what is going to work for our customers. How can we better set them up for success?
Well, Ariana, I would add too, I mean, part of that too is that, you know, we've prepared for this webinar and I just thought of this. To some degree, it's also like if the customers keep asking for something, great, because this is really give your customers what they keep telling you they want. If there is something that they keep asking you to do and we are just not going to do it because it's not part of our mission or part of our vision, like it's just not something we're going to do, communicate that with your customers. Like we're not all things to all people, and that is okay. We don't expect other businesses to do that, right? So if there are things that, you know, I mean, I try to think of like, what are the things? Oh, people will ask Zingtrain all the time for team building, right? And it's like, we will work with you on group organics on how to work well as a team. If you do any kind of training session together, you will build a better team, but we don't do what is traditionally considered team building, right? So we just let people know that right up front. So I think it's both the giving the customers what they keep telling you they want, and then also like, it's okay to say, wow, I'm really sorry, that isn't something that we do.
Yeah,
So.
for another example, Zingerman's Deli, lots of Jewish food, not a kosher restaurant. And so being able to tell people, not a kosher restaurant, and here are some options instead, because the people can always find options, but being really clear of like, this is something that we're not planning to do. This is where like frequently asked questions can be really helpful to guide folks if they're looking for those particular answers.
Yeah.
Awesome. Shall we get into some questions?
Oh, yeah, Ross, I see that one. Do you have any advice on how to communicate price increases? Right, a lot of stuff is going up in price. So we have to raise our prices sometimes too. And so one of the things that I really appreciate about how Zingerman's does this is we start communicating often and early so that it's not a surprise when the price change actually happens. And if it's appropriate, we might want to give someone a little bit of information about that. I know our bakery, wheat prices were increasing for a really long time before we actually changed the prices of our baked goods. And so, they produced what we have an organizational change process we call bottom line change. And part of that change process was communicating with the customers. Like prices of wheat have been rising over the past 2 years. We have not raised the prices, and it's not, we can't continue on that way. So, a price change is coming. Here's what to expect. And here's when that change is going to happen. i.e., if you want to stock up on that pumpernickel raisin bread, like do it before this date, because the price is going to be more expensive the next time you buy it. So, and customers really, like, no one's ever happy about a price increase, but they respect it and they understand it. And then when the change actually happens, that minimizes the number of complaints that we're going to get. So I think, yeah, communication early and often and letting people know. And if there is like a big reason behind it, like the significant increase in wheat prices was for our bakery.
The other thing too there is making it abundantly clear first to staff that the change is coming, because there's nothing like being a staff person. A customer is like, why did the price increase? And you're like, I just got here, I don't know, let me find out for you. If everyone knows that in advance, then it doesn't turn into such a like, I don't know, and that's never a good vibe to put out there of like, well, we just did it for, I don't know, so yeah.
Or when like staff are commiserating with the customer, like, yeah, I know, isn't that ridiculous? Like,
Exactly. Maximum number of options of a single item that a customer can digest. So I don't know formally, but I just from some reading in a podcast that I listened to recently. Humans can figure out between like 3 and 4 things at a time. And so if you have like 14 different options, how can you organize them so that they're a little easier to digest and kind of make them a little bit more approachable? You can have options, but yeah, I think about 3 as much as someone can get at a quick glance.
Well, and I think plus, I mean, if there's a way to display it visually too, like I can understand things a lot more if it's kind of like, okay, you're showing me 5 different options. Like I think about, like steak level of doneness, right? I mean, that's done a lot of different ways in a lot of different places. I really appreciate actually seeing a picture. So for a while, our Roadhouse, our full service American restaurant had cards laminated that the servers carried that actually showed a picture of what a steak looked like at our definition of rare, medium, medium well, and well, because how we define it is not necessarily what the customer actually expects. And as a customer, I do not like that surprise when I'm expecting one thing and I'm like, whoa, did this cow actually die? It feels very rare. I'm uncomfortable with that. I'm on the medium well section, which is never recommended by any chefs I know.
I'm with you too. Simon, I'm going to go ahead and Simon has a question here. This may or may not be relevant to this workshop, but what is the most important thing to do to set customers up for success? Having a training company, they're in an organizational development business where they also have training services.
Well, that's very pertinent to the work that Zingtrain does. So, I mean, I think communicating clear expectations, clear outcomes, like here's what you can expect by the end of this training. What are you hoping to get out of it? What are you hoping that the participants are going to get out of it? Right? I mean, asking your client that, and then also being really clear on what it is we're going to actually deliver. Right? I've been a trainer now full time for about 9 years or so, and that is one thing that is. It's a harder thing to communicate, right? Especially if you're working with a client on something that requires behavioral change, it takes a long time. So kind of helping people understand that too. Like we can come and we can do a customer service training. People aren't going to change the next day. And like to have true, lasting, sustainable organizational change, like there are other factors involved and we can help you with that. But I mean, not everyone, people sometimes just want edutainment and we kind of have to be okay with that too. It's like
the other tip that I have learned too a lot from Elnian is like knowing when to pick up the phone. And like we can communicate a lot through writing, but when do we need to literally get on the phone, or better yet, in some cases, get on a Zoom if we're meeting with multiple people, because there's so much dynamic that you just don't get through email. So how can we come really clear together and learn from each other through that conversations? Because there's so many times you ask someone a question and they answer like yes or no. And then if you're on the phone and they pause, they go, but and then they give you that piece of information where you're like, yes, that is going to make a huge difference in how we train that day.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for adding that, Ariana. Kat, your question, creative ways to get customers to open and read a confirmation email. I mean, man, is that not the perennial challenge for all of us? I mean, to me, I think it's twofold. It's one, telling them when you're taking an order to say, we will send you a confirmation email. Please open it to make sure everything looks correct. Like if we want to make sure that like if we have a spelling error, if I misunderstood something, that we're going to catch it right away. So I mean, when we put that kind of the significance behind it, that can really help. Yeah, I don't think that's really on brand for you. Maybe it's like, like see Nomi's in action. Or it's something like read this email, right? It's something that's really explicit, like read this email, check that everything is accurate. I mean, and I think those two things can really help. But in reality, I mean, this is why we're talking about communicating with customers in a lot of different ways, because people don't always do what we ask them to do and they don't always read the information that we're giving them. So if we can like reframe something, if we really stress on the phone that like, you will want to check that confirmation email, or like maybe put some kind of like little incentive in it. Like the next time when they come into, like if they open the email and print it, then they can get a free coffee or, something that gets them engaged too.
I will say too, for us, just from an email sending perspective, I think the shorter subject lines, like Eldine is saying, and emojis, believe it or not, emojis are, I think, good for open rates and catching people's attention. So
Yeah.
the shorter the line and like some kind of quirky emoji really kind of
Yeah.
makes it stand out.
Well, John, so that's a good question. How do we handle a significant call in order volume? That really depends on by business. I started on the phones at our mail order business. That business has shifted over the last 14 and a half years to having more and more like email interactions or chat interactions. But we do have people staffed to answer the phone. And we also I think it needs to be okay that things go to voicemail sometimes. What's important is that you check the voicemail regularly and that you return the calls or handle whatever it is on the other end. I also think, we have expectations that the phone is answered within 3 rings in any Zingerman's business. So frankly, if I'm in a different business, if I'm at the deli, and I hear a phone ringing and ringing and ringing, and I'm somewhere, I know where the telephones are, I can answer the phone correctly because we have a kind of a script. I can say good afternoon, thank you for calling Zingerman's Deli. My name is Elnie and how can I help you? Right. And then the person's going to ask a question that I probably can't help them with. And then I will say, well, that's a great question. Would you mind if I put you on hold and got some help? The customer's almost always going to say yes to that. I can put them on hold and then be like, hello, deli employee, I don't know how to answer this. Can you help? Right. Because that's one of those things that organizationally, we're all looking out for each other and trying to have a good overall, people have a good overall organizational experience. To be clear, I'm not just running around the other Zingerman's businesses answering their phone. It turns out that's kind of weird for them, especially because I don't actually know everyone in all of our different businesses. But the intention, you get so trained to answer the phone. But our colleague Katie, when she came to ZingTrain from working in the retail bake shop, we had to actually ask her to please not answer the phone immediately because she was the only person ever answering the phone. We're like, I really appreciate your attitude. I appreciate your vigor and your excitement. We would also like to also talk to customers. So if you don't mind, maybe let it ring once and we can have a chance at also answering the phone. But it was hard for her to kind of relax that a little bit when she started working at ZingTrain. We still answer within 3 rings, but it wasn't like the immediate response.
The other thing too with order volume is the deli has done a lot of work of knowing how many orders can they handle so that they can give fantastic service to the number of orders that they can really handle. For graduation weekend this year, that involved closing down orders multiple days before graduation actually happened. And so then it was having a person on the phone who was ready to say, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. And it's just that line, you can't get it perfect, but in some cases, you really got to know what is capacity, give great service to the people within that capacity, and everyone else. We're gonna have a conversation. It's gonna suck, but it's recognizing we want to make sure that we have enough people, enough food available. So
yeah. Simon, to your question, we don't necessarily talk about how to design training. We do have a virtual course called Create Training Plans That Work that talks kind of about our overall training structure at Zingerman's. We also have a workshop on the 5 steps to effective on-shift training, which is about one-on-one training. Neither of them are exactly what you're asking about, but I would recommend a training that I've been to as a trainer is a company called Langevin. It's Langevin. They call themselves, I believe, the world's largest train the trainer company. So that is definitely a great resource that multiple trainers from ZingTrain have attended as well.
Great.
Right. Any other questions?
Another moment or so for questions to come in. And if not, we will wrap things up. Okay. All right.
Well, what I would like to say is that, to thank everybody for being here. As I mentioned at the beginning, part of where this came from is that we're developing this retail tune-up that's coming up in June. It's going to be 2 hours on a Tuesday afternoon, 4 Tuesdays in a row. And it's going to be kind of a lot of the boots on the ground tools to help retail businesses kind of, be ready for the increased surge in in-person business. So, what do you want to keep? What do you want to revamp? Some tools for training on, frontline staff. We do have a discount for anyone who is a part of this webinar, which is if you put in the code, all the word written out 20, there you go. Thanks, Mara, for putting that in there. You can take 20% off the retail tune-up. So we'd love to see you there. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Ariana and I are teaching that. We're super excited and we're excited that Kat Gordon is going to be in it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Great. Well, that was a lot of the housekeeping that I was going to say, so that's fantastic. Thank you, Elmian. And thank you both for presenting today. And thank you all for the wonderful and engaging chat here today. That was a lot of fun. I know for Mara and I and Elmian and Ariana, all of us to be sort of following along on that. If you have any other questions, again, feel free to shoot those over to us. Either just at zingtrain@zingermans.com. We would love to continue the conversation. Don't forget about that discount code. And yeah, we would love to hear what you thought about today's webinar. So if Mara hasn't dropped it in already, Mara, I would love it if you would drop in a link. There it is to our survey. We'd love to hear what you thought, what you'd love to hear more about, what we can do better. We would really appreciate that. And we will be sending out the recording and the slides here in the next day or two. So be sure to look out for those in your inboxes soon. And I think without further ado, we're going to sign off here. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.